Thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is Todd Carlson. I'll be hosting today. If you have any questions on the right, you can just ask them in the chat, and I'll ask Jennifer them at the end. Today we're joined with Jennifer DeBono, part of our Carlson webinar series, and I think she has some really interesting stuff for us to look at today.
All right,
Jennifer.
Thanks, Todd.
Sure.
I appreciate it. So we'll go ahead and go through just a few, little bit of housekeeping here. I appreciate Todd being here to catch the questions, and we'll answer those. Todd, if you get any in the middle that makes sense to stop me, feel free to do it.
Sure.
The topic today will be recovering corrupt drawing files and how to use Civil 3D data in Carlson. And I'm just going to have a few slides here. I've got, usually mention these up front. If anyone would be interested, I have prepared 2 books of 3 training manuals for Carlson configuring CAD settings, getting started with points, Carlson survey field to finish. If you'd be interested in those, I have those available on my online store. I'm kind of following Carlson's track and have some end-of-year pricing through 12/31 if anybody's interested in taking a look at those. I also wanted to mention that Carlson has some training classes coming up. Todd will be holding a takeoff and SiteNet training in the Orlando, Florida area. He's going to have, I believe, 1 day of takeoff and 1 day of SiteNet. So if you're not familiar with the SiteNet and the takeoff, SiteNet is in the Civil package, Carlson Civil, but it is kind of an all-encompassing layer-based modeling. You can do modeling with it, do all of your estimating, cuts and fills, material takeoffs and quantities, and it's a very powerful menu in Carlson Civil. And then that was really the basis menu that the takeoff was built around. So that is in February of 2014, but they have some early bird registrations through December 20th, so you have a few days for that. And then out in Colorado, I'm not sure who's doing that, but it looks like they have survey, civil, and mining training here in just a few days, so it's kind of late, but if anyone's interested. Also, I'll just do a quick plug that Carlson has their end-of-year specials going on. Here's the Carlson webpage. You can see this is the retail pricing. You can contact resellers and can usually get a little better pricing for that. With all of the Carlson with AutoCAD products, Esri is still offering their GIS starter kit where you get a free copy of the ArtView. And then they have a lot of good incentives. Actually, the end-of-year pricing may be a little better than some of the competitive upgrade pricing that they have. But just wanted to point that out on Carlson's website. And then talk about late notice. I have a couple of workshops tomorrow in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. So we have a full day tomorrow of Carlson Survey and GIS. And then the next day on Thursday, it'll be a full day of Carlson Civil and Hydrology. So we've got some folks from Carlson in. It's usually a good day. If you're licensed in North Carolina, you can get 8 PDH credits for that. And I've just got the links here from my website for anybody interested. So with that, let me get on to the topic at hand. And I'm going to start off. I've got pretty much every program I might want. So to start off with here, I am in Civil 3D, and to begin with, I'm just going to explain for those of you that don't use Civil 3D or are not familiar really with why it's an issue that we're even having this webinar to get Civil 3D data into the program, into Carlson or any other program. And I just wanted to demonstrate a little bit. I do have a drawing that was done in Civil 3D that I'll open. And I'm going to grab this one. So this was created in Civil 3D. It is An existing ground surface drawing is pretty much all that's in here. If I hover over it, you can see this is a Civil 3D 2012 surface object. So if I select on it, the whole thing selects. In Civil 3D, they have all these unique objects. So it's not just a polyline that's a contour or a line that's a triangle. The surface itself is an object, like any other piece of text or any other line. Civil 3D objects, you've got surface objects, you've got point objects, you would have alignment objects, profile, views, profiles. Pretty much everything that we create in the civil survey world is going to be an object in Civil 3D that's unique, not just to Civil 3D, but unique to that version of Civil 3D. So for instance, I'm in Civil 3D 2012 here. This Civil 3D surface object is not even compatible with Civil 3D 2011. I wouldn't be able to open it up and read that surface object in 2011. We can't open up this drawing in Carlson on top of AutoCAD or on top of IntelliCAD or anything like that and be able to read this surface. So we need to have ways to get Civil 3D surface or point data, primarily I think, back to Carlson. So here's the Civil 3D surface. I'm going to switch over, and I've got Carlson with IntelliCAD open. And it will be read-only, but I'm going to open that same drawing. The read-only is not going to affect it. Okay, so there's my beautiful surface. So this is very typical. This, if I list what looks to be a rectangle or a polyline, you can see that it's not even that. It's what we call a proxy entity. And all that means is that IntelliCAD cannot read and doesn't understand what that object is, so it puts something in its place. It's a proxy object. It's a stand-in or a substitute. Again, even if you're using one earlier version of Civil 3D, you may get the same thing. So this is what we're trying to address. That doesn't help us a whole lot opening this beautiful thing up in Carlson. So there's a few different ways that we can get that data back. They've each got their limitations. One way that you can do it is, and I'm not going to pretend to know my way around the ribbons like I should in Civil 3D. I can barely get it around. But one way to do it, and I'm just going to type in at the command line, and you can see that when I do this, it actually has tooltips at the command line. So for instance, I can do an export to AutoCAD. I can keep it the same version. So the DWG version in Civil 3D 2012 is actually a 2010 drawing file. So I'm not changing the version here, but I'm exporting it out to AutoCAD entities. And if you'll notice what it's actually putting in here, it keeps it's not going to open me up in that. This is something that's happening external. It's exporting this Civil 3D drawing out to AutoCAD entities, and it's just putting ACAD in front of it. If you're having to worry about versions, it may be a good idea to put 2010 so you know what version. So when I save it, you'll see it does not open me up in that file. But now I can go over, there's the file I just exported. If I open that up, so now it looks at least a little bit more like a surface. If I select on this, it's going to be a polyline. So that's the boundary. The contours are all polylines. And the triangles are 3D faces. So this is not the greatest bit of data. I can view it in the 3D viewer. I think I can. Oh, everything's 0? That's surprising. I didn't think that would happen. I think maybe I did something wrong there. Everything came in at 0, and I'm not even sure why. I don't think that was, I'll have to look at that. I think that should have come in at least with elevation. I'll try to go back at the end of the webinar and try that again. But when I was going through this in preparation, I think it came in with elevations. But basically what you're getting when you export to AutoCAD, you are getting just AutoCAD entities that you can then turn around and build a surface from. So we'll assume we're going to get 3D elevated contours, elevated faces. We could then use Carlson's triangulate and contour command to build a surface from that. We're still recreating the wheel, so that's one reason. This is a way to do it, not the best way. So let's look at another method that we can use. I'm not going to save that. The best way to get surface data, point data, alignments, or center lines in Carlson, profiles, any of that, the best way to get that out of Civil 3D and to Carlson, or even from Civil 3D to a previous version of Civil 3D, is to use LandXML. So I've done webinars on LandXML before. I'm not going to get too deep into it here, but if you'd like more information, shoot me an email and I've got some documentation. I'm happy to send it off to you. LandXML is a generic file format that contains point data, surface data, all kinds of different data, whatever your project may have. So a LandXML file I've got opened up here, and you can see that's the file name. This was exported from Civil 3D a couple years ago, 2012 actually, and it is, again, just a very generic format for points, for surfaces, for all that data that we create. And you can see how generic it is. This is it opens up in like an HTML file in Internet Explorer or a browser window. You can see all the points are listed here. It's actually active, so I'm going to hit this minus sign and it's going to collapse it. But you can see every point is stored here, generally in text. And there was a point group. So point groups are something that can get exported and imported using LandXML files. So in the point group topo, all of these different points that were defined previously are part of point group topo. Then when it comes to surfaces, they're defined this way. So if you look down here, where it's got a PID, each one of those points, it's given a point number and an ID to every point on the surface. So if you picture that surface being a series of triangles, all these 10 lines, each one of these represents a corner of a triangle. And this is the XYZ of every triangle corner in the surface named EG. So that's the first step in defining a surface. And then the second step in defining that surface is to define which of those 10 points create the faces. So every triangle has 3 points that make it up, so that's what this is telling us. And giving a definition for all of those faces. And that's all that was in this one. So we had the points, we had the surfaces, but that's just an example of a LandXML file. So you can import and export LandXML files from pretty much any civil survey software. It's great for data collection, and it really takes the manufacturer out. People that make Civil 3D don't have to worry about giving all of their proprietary information to Carlson just so that their surfaces can be read from one another, and vice versa. Everything can be saved out to a LandXML file and imported that way. So for instance, we've got this data. In this case, we've got a surface. We don't actually have any alignments, but we've got a surface. And if we want to export that out for use in Carlson, I'm under the output, I don't know my verbiage here either, output tab on the export panel, and I can export to LandXML. So one thing that's nice about a LandXML file, as you saw, one XML file can hold many different types of data. So I don't actually have any points or point groups here. I've got surfaces. I don't have alignments. I'll leave sites checked and pick up OK. And here it's asking me to give it a file name. So let me just put today's date. So that'll be 12/10. And I'll say out to Carlson. And so LandXML export is complete. So now I can go into Carlson, any program, any platform. Under the File menu, I can import LandXML file. And I'll browse to this folder I'm working in. There's the one I just created. And open that. It recognizes the surface that was stored there. I've got an option to apply a scale or no scale, so it'll do your transformations as you do this. And it gives me an opportunity to give it a file name. Let me make sure I get back into the correct folder, and let me put today's date, because I call everything EG when I'm doing training or demonstrations. Put today's date. And it's done. So if I double click on my wheel, I did a zoom extents. It actually drew the contours in there for me. Maybe I like them, maybe I don't. If I go to the view menu, I can do a surface 3D viewer. And there's the surface, so I've got the ability to look at it this way. Flip it around, exaggerate it, and some other things here. So it's a surface. I can do anything I need to with it. If I go to surface, maybe I'll just erase all these. Go to surface, contour from 10 file. And now I may want a little control. It just took the current settings, whatever I had set up here. Maybe I prefer to have 2-foot and 10-foot contours, maybe a different layer. If I put a C in front of it, maybe this was a proposed surface. And I can just redraw that and do whatever I need to do with it. So that's kind of, like I said, I think if I had to recommend anything, I think I'm always going to recommend requesting or asking for, hopefully you're on good terms. If somebody using Civil 3D needs to send you any of that type of data, always ask for it in a LandXML file. It's going to give you the best, most complete reproduction of the surfaces or points or whatever they had. So, Todd, do you have any questions on the LandXML?
No.
Okay. So let's look here. I'm going to close this drawing. Well, I think it's going to be the same, but I've got two other drawings that I'm going to open. Again, they're in Civil 3D. I'm not going to make any changes here, but just to kind of demonstrate another way to get data from Civil 3D over to Carlson that you may or may not be aware of. Here you can see I've just got points. I've actually got a point group. I've got all the points, and then there's the topo point group that you saw in the other thing. So this is something that I may get a drawing that has just Civil 3D points in. And again, I think this is the same thing. Yeah, it's going to look the same. So another Civil 3D surface. So we've already seen what the Civil 3D surface looks like when we bring it over to Carlson with AutoCAD. Let's look and see what the points look like. So opening the same drawing I just had in Civil 3D, these are the proxy entities for point data. So you can see it's an AutoCAD proxy entity. Again, Carlson or IntelliCAD or a previous version of Civil 3D is not going to know how to display those Civil 3D 2012 point objects. And we need to get them, we need a CRD file, we need points in the drawing, whatever we can get from this. It's better than what we're seeing on the screen. So another way that you can do it, and to my knowledge, points and surfaces is the only thing that this is that you can do what I'm getting ready to show you. Under points, you can convert point format and then convert Land Desktop Civil 3D to Carlson points. So it's asking for a CRD file, and again, I'll just give it today's date, and I'll say webinar points. At the command line, it asks if it was created from a block type point or if it's a custom entity. These are going to be custom entities coming from Civil 3D. And it runs through its conversion, and you can see that I've got the points came into the drawing. I can go to list points. There's my CRD file, and I can just see all the points that came in. So that's another method that you may use. I will tell you that one thing to pay attention to or to ask for if a drawing is emailed to you or sent to you is that the points, the surfaces, what have you, make sure that they display in the Civil 3D drawing every bit of information that you need. So if someone's sending you point data via a Civil 3D drawing file, you want to make sure that more than just the point number is visible. You want the point number, the elevation, the description. If you remember that this Civil 3D drawing, this surface, I requested or I made sure it was visible, not just contours, but also the 10 lines. And that way, when I come into Carlson, let me just do it, I'll start a new drawing, I don't have to. But just to have a clean slate, I have nothing in this drawing. Oops, I did that wrong. I actually have to open that file. So again, we'll just get the proxy for the surface, and under the surface menu, this is in Survey and Civil, but it's just in a little different place in the surface menu. Import, export surface, you can convert a Land Desktop Civil 3D surface drawing. And it found surface EG. Do you want to convert it to a Carlson 10 surface? And put today's date. And I'll say this was from Civil 3D. And so when it comes into my Carlson drawing, it's got all the same entities that it did from Civil 3D. And again, that's important because when you do this, once more, you will have to rebuild. Let's see if I got elevations here. Okay, so I did get elevations when I did it this way. Oh, I got some bad data. Nah. All right, so we'll just kind of leave it there. But again, both of those conversions can work for you, but you're still going to have to rebuild the surface when you get here in Carlson for that. So again, Any questions, Todd? I'm going to go on to recovering, just some tips and tricks for recovering drawings.
Yeah, 2 questions.
I know everybody always says it, but this did better in preparation. I'm getting some weird feedback.
Can a corridor file from Civil 3D, can that be exported out to Land XML and then brought in into Carlson?
I think the components of the corridor can. I think that the alignments, cross sections, what else am I missing there? Templates maybe. I do know, and I check, yeah, profiles. I check on this. Of course, I've got a current subscription for Civil 3D, and I always double check with them. You know, once a year, I send an email off through the portal, through the Civil 3D tech support, and ask, you know, please tell me if there's a better way to get data from one version of Civil 3D to the other, or out to another file. Anything better than Land XML? And the answer again this year was no. But the other thing it's always good to ask about, because you have, you know, with Civil 3D you've got all the styles. Like I said earlier, you've got a profile, you've also got a profile view. And it's my understanding like the profile views don't come over from Civil 3D, but that's definitely something to confirm. But just check, and I can't remember everything they told me that didn't. The tech support guy actually offered it up and said, by the way, none of this stuff comes over in Land XML. So.
Right, but the corridor file, the files that make up that. Okay.
That's my knowledge, so.
Okay. And then the other question, when the points are created in Carlson, will they have the same point numbers and descriptions as they had in Civil 3D?
Just on the conversion? Or was that from Land XML? I think the conversion did.
Yeah, because it has the point numbers and descriptions there, so it's just using the same values. If no descriptions listed, then they won't come through.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's something I've emailed in to Carlson Tech Support on that, to find out if there's anything you can do to kind of drag that data out of Civil 3D if it wasn't in the drawing. So for instance, you know, and again, I'm not sure how many people watching are that familiar with Civil 3D, and I'm just a bare bones user on this. But for instance, on a Civil 3D surface, I can change it to look like, right now it's got a style of contours and triangles. Well, there's a style for border only. So if that's how that surface is displayed in the drawing when it's saved and sent to you, you're not going to get a whole lot. So so that's kind of where I'm going with all that.
Okay. Yeah, that was the 2 questions.
Okay, we can come back if, and like I said, when we get to the end, I'll see if we've got a few minutes. I'll try to go back and maybe try that again and see if there was something I missed.
Okay.
Alrighty. So the next thing I wanted to kind of look at, I won't close Civil 3D, but I'm just going to switch over. This is Carlson just running on top of Civil 3D, so I don't have the prospector and all of that stuff. And so there's kind of 2 ways to break down how to recover corrupt drawings, and I'm going to go ahead and go through these, some of these ways. So sometimes it's corrupt, but you can still open the drawing. It may be acting really weird. Maybe the file size has just exploded and it's turned sluggish and you're not entirely sure what you can do with it. If you can open the drawing, these are some of the commands that are available to you. So I'm just going to use this drawing that I use in a lot of my data sets. So this is a project set of drawings for a little apartment complex. You can see I have, I don't know, 10, 12 different layout tabs. If I switch over to model, you can see I've just got a ton of things. If I use my LA command and just thaw everything and turn everything on, you'll see there's even more of a mess to it. So this is not a clean drawing by any stretch. So let's say this is a drawing that we're having trouble with. What all can we do? One thing is to purge. So you can type in purge, or you can get to purge. If you're in Carlson, you can get to purge from the file menu, drawing utilities, and purge. So if you purge, if you just type purge or you go to it through the menu, it brings up the purge dialog box. A couple things that you can notice: you've got two radio buttons that tells you view items you can purge. What purge will do is it will get rid of and clean the definitions out of the drawing for any unused, and unused is the keyword, any unused layers, line types, anything you see here in this list, basically plot style, shape files, table, text styles. So when you see a plus sign next to something like dimension styles, what this is telling me is that at some point, maybe it came from the template. Maybe I started with a template drawing that had all of these dimension styles in. Maybe I'm a civil, do civil design work. We've got surveying in the office, but we got a drawing in from an architect, and when we inserted their drawing into ours, these styles came with it. Bottom line, they're in the drawing, the definitions are there, but they're not being used, and we can purge them out, and it just makes the database and the drawing smaller by a bit. Any unused layers, again, it's hard to tell. Maybe these are things that came in with a block and then you erase the block. Multi-leader styles, there's some text styles that are extra in here. So what we can do, I usually turn off confirm each item to be purged. I don't want to be prompted. If you have just a few, maybe that's an option for you. Purge nested items, I always pick that, because if you think of the logic and how this is going to go through, maybe you have some unused blocks. Within those unused blocks, there are layers that are specific to that block. So if you purge one time, you may get rid of the block definition, but now you've abandoned all those layers that were there just simply to support that block. Well, then if you run through purge a second time, the layers that now are not used can go away. So purge nested just means that it runs through purge as many times as it needs to get rid of everything that's dependent on other items in the drawing. Purge zero length geometry and empty text objects. So that's another one that can help the size of a drawing grow accidentally. This is a fairly new option. It hasn't been around forever, but I would recommend that you turn that on. And then I always hit purge all. And when I close, it tells me just a little bit of information. Now, if you have Carlson has a drawing cleanup command that does a whole lot of this stuff here. So it's kind of a fancy version of purge. It does a whole lot of other things for you. So a lot of people may know the purge command. What you may not know is this was the old way to do it. So if you learned AutoCAD back when I did, when we typed purge at the command line, there were no dialog boxes really to speak of, and it brought up purge at the command line. So one thing you can type here is just an A for all, and it more or less runs through what the dialog box did. But there are a few things, actually I guess maybe just one now, in other versions until they added that last checkbox to the purge dialog. I think you had 2 or 3 items that were here and available from purge at the command line that aren't in the dialog. The only one I can see, which is the one I wanted to talk about anyway, is registered applications. So if I type an R for registered applications, I'm going to do a star, so this will just purge all registered applications. Verify each name. I think there's a bunch of them, so I'm going to say no. 137. So if I hit F2, you can actually see these are all the programs in any way, shape, or form that have ever touched this drawing. And you're not going to know what they all are. But things like SDSK, that's Softdesk. So who knows, this may have touched Lam Desktop. The SDSK may also be in Civil 3D, some old routines. But sometimes if you just have a drawing that's going a little quirky, it's hard to tell. It may be because another program touched it and changed some things. So it's not going to hurt anything if you purge those registered applications, but I would also say they may come back. So you know, if you're trying to clean your drawing, that's just one step. You may have to do it again. The next thing I wanted to show is an audit command. So again, I type everything. You can type audit, or in Carlson under File, Drawing Utilities again, you'll find audit. So with audit, what audit does, AutoCAD is a database. So the DWG file is a database file, and then we have what's displayed on the screen. Sometimes you end up with a little discrepancy. Maybe the end of a polyline shows it to be at one place in the drawing and just a slight shift to it, or just a slightly different place in the database. What this audit's going to do is it's going to bring the database file and what you see on the drawing screen, bring them together. So you want to fix any errors that are detected. Sometimes you get some decent feedback from this. Sometimes you just see stuff like this on the screen that doesn't mean a whole lot to you unless you're a programmer. But it runs through. It found 16 errors. A lot of times, the ones that I would recognize, if you do a lot of grip editing on polylines, you'll see that, and if you've ever paid real close attention in a drawing, if you grip edit a vertex on a polyline, sometimes it looks like you leave just a little teeny speck behind, and those are some of the typical errors that may show up here. I've seen 10,000 errors on drawings, so you know, don't be terribly scared on this, but it's just good to have a clean drawing. Okay, and looking back at our list, we had purge, dash purge for registered applications, and audit. Wblock is another way, if you can get to the drawing and actually access it. What you can do is just start the Wblock command. I'm going to do it by typing a W. And you have an option to write out the entire drawing. So what it's going to do is it's going to take everything in this drawing file, make a copy of it, put it in a brand new DWG file, and hopefully it leaves behind anything that's corrupt or bad and that we don't want. So I'll just put 1210 Wblocked file. Okay, I'm not going to send out the map information. And then once that's Wblocked out, that's a file that I can just go out and open. And hopefully, if you've been having trouble at this point, it's a cleaner drawing file. One thing that's nice about this is that, all of your layouts came over. And I'm going to go on a limb. I don't think that was always the case. I think you used to lose your viewports. I'm not sure how long, or layouts. I'm not sure how long ago that was, but Definitely something to check before you go deleting the original file. Okay, so let's see. And then we talked about export to AutoCAD. This is more, you only have an export to AutoCAD command from Civil 3D and Land Desktop. The last version, or the last few versions, I guess, of Land Desktop had an export to AutoCAD. So we've already shown that, but that's another thing that you can try to export out to AutoCAD. And then finally, I think more of the, I left one in here I shouldn't have. That Wblock shouldn't have been on this slide, so we'll take that out. It belonged on the previous one. But if you can't open the drawing, what options do you have? Actually, this is kind of messed up. I think I edited this and took out the wrong thing. So I'm batting 1,000. So one of the ways, another way, if you can't open the drawing, let's, I'm just going to close this without saving changes. And I'll start a new drawing with the AutoCAD DWT. And the reason I'm doing that is just to kind of show you that there are no layers here. Just a couple line types defined, so it's really a clean slate. And what I can do also, if I can't directly open a corrupt drawing, I can insert that, hopefully. Something you can try. And I'm going to insert this corrupt drawing. When you do it, you want to make sure that you have 000 set as your insertion point. Usually I'm going to pick explode. You can always explode afterward. Set your scale at 1, your rotation, and this may take just a second. And so we've inserted it. It came in at its exact same coordinates that it started out, so I probably will have to do a zoom extents, which I just did by double-clicking on my wheel. And the drawings come in. Now, if you had a corrupt drawing, you couldn't open it at all, you may be thrilled right here and now. But one thing to notice is all those layout tabs are gone. So I just wanted to kind of show, for those of you that may not be familiar with this, one way that you can try to get it back is, again, if it's a corrupted drawing and you're not able to even open it. I'm in AutoCAD Design Center. So AutoCAD Design Center, I got to, actually I'll just close it and show you. You can type in ADC, and there's also an icon, one of these up here. I can never find it. Anyway, type in ADC, it's the easiest way. And this is a content browser, so it looks like it's just like Windows Explorer, but you can drill down into each file. So let's say this is my corrupt drawing. So not only can I see the file, but I can see all the blocks. That was a mistake. It's going to create a little icon for everything. So without having the drawing open, I'm able to see every block, every dimension style, every layer, and so on. Notice I can see every layout that's in that corrupt file even though it's not open. So I'm not sure how long this would take, so I'm not going to do everything. But I can select one or all of the layouts from that corrupt drawing, hopefully, and just drag and drop them into my current drawing. And I'm glad I didn't pick all of them. It's taking a second here. But here are the layouts that we were kind of afraid were abandoned in that other drawing, but we've now pulled them into this cleaner drawing. So let me go ahead and fix this since I messed it up. So that's the way it should look. So we've got recover all inserted as an exploded block. Let's look at recover. Again, if you have a drawing that you can't get to, you don't have to be in a drawing. So I'm in drawing 1 and the command is recover, R-E-C-O-V-E-R, just type it in, or you can pick it off the menu. It lets you go out, select that file. I always like that. So it comes in, it tells you a little bit of information. Now at the end, if you notice, it actually runs an audit at the end of a recovery. And it tells me it found those same 16 errors because I did not save the drawing previously, so it's the same 16 errors. But if it worked out well, if the recover worked, this is another way to open the drawing. So you have two commands. A lot of people know about recover, but you may not know about recover all. Recover all will recover the main drawing plus any drawings that are X-referenced into that. So maybe another option. Sometimes the X-reference drawings are the ones that are keeping you from opening it, but both of those can be done without opening the drawing itself. And then last, I'm going to mention DWG Convert. So DWG Convert is in a program that Autodesk gives you for free called DWG TrueView. It comes out once a year with all their other programs. And it's meant just what it says. It will allow you to open, view, freeze and thaw layers, do a couple of list and distance, I think, and it'll let you plot a drawing file. So this is actually good in companies that I've worked with before on a consulting or CAD standardization. We've actually standardized admin staff had on their computers had DWG TrueView. In case they ever needed to pull it up and plot, a lot of the principals may not know CAD very much, but they were able to pull up a drawing and plot part of it if they need. As part of TrueView, there is a program called DWG Convert. And this is the part most people are familiar with, because what the Convert routine allows you to do is to select one or more files. You can pick a whole folder full if you want. So maybe I've got all 4 of those files and I'm going to open them, and just in, try again. Let me try one. But like I said, you should be able to open the whole folder full. I'm not sure why that's not working, but so you can pick one or more files, and then you have all these conversion routines. Several of them are created already for you, but just real easily you can convert from one version to another. So people email you files and you're not on their current version, you can always use this DWG Convert to do that. But kind of like the other things that we've talked about, a lot of people may know about this as a conversion utility, but what you may not realize are all the other things that you can have Convert do. So again, I'm not in the file. If I'm having trouble opening it, I may set up a conversion routine. It doesn't even change versions. It keeps me on the same version. But you can see here what it'll do. Check and fix errors, that's an audit command. So from outside the drawing, you can have it do an audit. in case something's wrong. Set the default plotter to none. If you've ever opened a drawing from somebody else where they had network plotters, sometimes your drawing just sits there and spins looking for the plotters that are on somebody else's network. So that will eliminate that. Bind external references. So if you have a whole folder full of files or even just one drawing with 2 or 3 X references, from here you can have it bind those. Purge drawings and replace page setups. So again, in a pinch, that was kind of my last recommendation here as to how to get into that corrupt file possibly. So Todd, I think that's all I had.
Hey, on the
any other questions?
Yeah, on the true convert, if you go back to that, there's file format in the middle there.
Right here. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, and that's where you can pick different file versions.
Right.
Yeah, someone just had a question. Is recover, audit, and purge, do those work in AutoCAD?
Yes, good question.
And those are all in AutoCAD as well?
Yep, so audit, recover, purge.
And
so it looks like I don't see that. And again, I think that's pretty new. That what was it? Zero length line work and empty text entities. So it doesn't look like those are options, but it's very similar.
Yeah, and yeah, another question with the TrueView about converting those, if it's a Civil 3 drawing, just down to standard CAD, DWG. And that's something that they had in 2011 and earlier versions of TrueView. But if you go to File Format, there used to be a list that said explode AEC objects into standard CAD.
You know, I thought I was losing my mind on that. I thought that was in here at one time.
Yes, they took it out.
They took it out.
So there wasn't a free program to convert Civil 3D objects into standard CAD.
They're proprietary
but if you can
themselves.
if you can get a version of 2011 TrueView, that's in there.
That's a good way. Okay.
And I still have both the 2013 and 2011 version of TrueView.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to get overwhelmed by saying this. I do that for a lot of people, though. I've got Civil 3D, so I'll open it up and just do a quick convert for people.
Right.
Yeah, and something else that's kind of neat, too, is when you do that conversion, there's a self-extracting zip file, and then you can also, when you finish the conversion, put everything into a zip file. So.
Good. Okay. Yeah, that's most of the questions we had. If anything else comes up, feel free to email Jennifer or I your questions. And this video has been recorded, and it will be on our website to view.
Yep, and here's my information. Any questions? I think I mentioned the handout that I've got on the Land XML. Happy to share that. Happy to answer any questions. Always wish it could have gone a little smoother, but I think the main points got across. So
yep.
Appreciate everybody attending today.
Yep, and thanks, Jennifer, and everyone for your time.